Alright, so this is why most AAA games have no soul. Let's give this a look.
What is happening to the studios we loved? How can they make some of the greatest games of all time, then turn around and just make disappointment after disappointment?
I'll be honest, I haven't played any of those games. I haven't played Battlefield 2042, I've heard it's terrible. I haven't played Watch Dogs Legion, although one of my friends doesn't really like it in comparison to Watch Dogs 2. Diablo Immortal, again, I'm guessing... I've seen backlash for it, but none of us have played it, so...
Felt like the end of AAA games, but then Elden Ring came out.
Yeah. I think that the whole Elden Ring thing, Elden Ring just took the world by storm, I feel like. I mean, I don't need to say, I'm pretty sure we all know that by now, but what Elden Ring accomplished was nothing short of a miracle.
Why is Elden Ring such a breath of fresh air when most other AAA games feel copy-pasted?
It's literally is that. Like, nowadays you have, like, games like FIFA, WWE, you know, NBA, where it's literally just the same game over and over again, just with slightly prettier graphics. But, like, look at this. Like, the 2023 version of FIFA, the graphics look terrible. Like, awful. Let's just go back. Like, the graphics look terrible here as well, but,
most
like...
other AAA games feel copy-pasted.
It doesn't look any better, you know?
And why did this game cause so much controversy?
Oh, here we go. Hold on.
Game caused so much controversy.
Yeah, so the whole Quantum TV drama was just so absurd. Essentially, for those who don't know, this motherfucker gave Elden Ring a terrible review. And when I say a terrible review, not only did he say the game was bad, but his reasonings were pretty, like, nonsensical at best. And it just turned into the biggest drama of the year. Like, it was pretty insane.
Elden Ring is Game of the Year? The game is
Oh yeah, totally.
bah, man.
To answer these questions, we first need to understand that when Elden Ring came out, the game defied everyone's expectation. Elden Ring sold 12 million copies in the first 2 weeks.
12 million copies in the first 2 weeks. That's insane.
Even Miyazaki, the mastermind behind Elden Ring, was surprised by the success. And
According to Miyazaki, Elden Ring's success was quite a surprise, commenting on the game's tricky development from the collaboration with George R.R. Martin and struggling with implementing its open world. Regardless, Miyazaki stated that they were taking all the game's positive and negative receptions into account for future projects. Continuing on, Miyazaki commented on From Software's future projects. Despite the high bar that Elden Ring has set for the gaming community, he stated that superseding previous games is not what they set out to do, instead prioritizing what they want to create, even if an idea might be risky. Again, I think that that's a very good idea, because they're essentially making what they want to make, even if it may backfire. But as, you know, Elden Ring clearly demonstrated, they can make something completely different, but similar to what they've made in previous projects, and it'll work, because they know what they're doing.
to put the sales into context, Elden Ring at release was on pace to sell the same amount of copies as some of the best-selling open-world games of the last decade. GTA 5, Skyrim, and Breath of the Wild.
That is insane. That is insane. Because you gotta remember, like, GTA 5 and Skyrim, they've been out on last gen, current gen, and, like, you know, they've been on, like, multiple generations, like Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, etc. GTA, same example. So if you factor all of those copies that have been sold worldwide, Elden Ring on far less platforms is already rivaling them. That's insane.
I mean, if you really think about it, Elden Ring should not have been performing.
Did Elden Ring make a profit? A 1,100% increase in profit. The company also announced an improvement of 255% in net sales for the... How is it this difficult? Why can't game developers just take note?
As well as these other games. Don't get me wrong, Elden Ring is an incredible game, but most FromSoft games are pretty niche and usually target
I agree.
hardcore and advanced player base. By nature, FromSoft games shouldn't sell as much as Zelda or GTA. But this
Yeah, I agree, they shouldn't. But, like, in recent memory, like, every game just feels the same. Hence, you know, why AAA games have no soul. Every game feels the same. And Elden Ring, not only was it a breath of fresh air, but it was the most accessible Souls game. Like, it was on every platform, and it had, like, the most amount of tools, like the Spirit Summon system, to make new people feel welcome.
Time Elden Ring did. Why? What was different about Elden Ring, and what set it apart from other FromSoft games? The answer?
Let's have a look.
Nothing really. Yes, Elden Ring was open world, so unlike other Souls games, you could avoid certain bosses and areas. Yes, the lore was some of the best I'd ever seen in a game. The world was so immersive that I don't think I could ever find everything in the mysterious world of the lands between.
No.
Seriously.
Like, even after beating the game, like, 8 times, there are still things that I'm discovering about the game. It's incredible.
Elden Ring is a masterpiece. Go play this game. But I would argue...
Yeah, it is a masterpiece. It's not a perfect masterpiece, but it's still a masterpiece regardless. And in terms of what he said, yeah, he's true. Elden Ring, in terms of gameplay and stuff, is not that much different to previous Souls games. It really isn't. The Ash of Wars, they were in Dark Souls 3. You know, some of the jumping over stuff and, you know, the advanced evasion of Sekiro. Again, it was introduced in Sekiro.
That almost every FromSoft game is a masterpiece too, and just like the other Souls games, Elden Ring still targets a hardcore player base, and the gameplay is still punishing as hell. So why then...
It's very punishing. However, because of the way the world is set out, you can essentially experience any challenge at any time you like. And let's just put it like this. Elden Ring, last playing an hour ago, 36,000. 24-hour peak, 55,000. All-time peak, 952,000. Damn, that is insane.
Is Elden Ring capturing a much larger chunk of the gaming market? There is a huge demand for high-quality AAA games.
Agreed.
Not much of a supply. I mean, imagine you're at a restaurant, and you have a hankering for some steak. But they're out of stock. All they have left is some burnt scraps of cooked steak they can shovel onto a plate, or you can get a delicious honey-baked ham with a sweet honey drizzle. So although you wanted a steak, you choose the honey-baked ham because the steak scraps just aren't edible. This is the...
I kind of see what he means. It's like you want something, you want a specific thing, however that specific thing is bad or not up to your standards, so you go with something else. I can understand that.
AAA game market we are in right now. Millions of gamers looking at the piss-poor options.
Oh my days.
To Gabe, the god of Steam, to give them anything fun and exciting. It doesn't matter what genre, as long as it's good. Just give us something
Hold on, I've just noticed something. Can I just point out how bad Dying Light 2 was? Like, to put into context how quickly I forgot that game, I didn't even realize it came out last year. I thought it came out in 2021. Like, that's how... Man. What a disappointment.
edible and satisfying. So when Elden Ring came out and the world saw how amazing this game was, people who were originally intimidated by Souls games looked at Elden Ring and said, screw it, let's try it out. I got nothing else to play. So like
pretty much, yeah.
Choosing the ham over the burnt steak, I would argue that Elden Ring's meteoric success is not only a byproduct of how good the game is, but because there's such a small supply of good AAA titles right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Elden Ring came out at the perfect time. Like, just not that many good games exist now. Like, and in terms of, you know, the Game Awards, it was basically the only game that even came close to rivaling Elden Ring was God of War Ragnarok. And that game was phenomenal. Like, I'm not taking anything away from it, but it was between those two games. Like, there was absolutely nothing else that rivaled those two games, in my opinion.
Elden Ring really is the best option on the menu. However, like every industry, there will be people...
Elden Ring sucks and I can prove it. 4 minutes, 48 seconds. Ah, yes, of course, because a game that's more than 50 hours long, if you're 100%ing it, and a game that I can't beat, like, in under 10 hours on a casual playthrough, oh yeah, you could sum up why it's bad in 4 minutes. Totally not clickbait. Elden Ring sucks because it's too hard. Oh, this was Griffin Gaming. He basically reviewed... Yeah, I remember watching that video. He basically played the game, like, he got his ass kicked by the Grafted Scion. He played the tutorial. I don't even know if he beat the Soldier of Godric, but, like, he got killed by, like, the Tree Sentinel a few times and then made his video. Why Elden Ring is a terrible game with proof. I'm fairly sure this video was satire. I'm pretty sure, like, he in the video, he literally, like, he was like, oh, Elden Ring's terrible because the NPCs don't have enough toes or something dumb like that. I'm pretty sure that video was satire.
People who hate or love something.
Yeah, like, and again, on the other side of the spectrum, I think that these videos... Hold on.
Purely because of...
It's pretty clear the comparison. You know, like, those videos back then, it was like, oh, Elden Ring's bad, 4 minutes long. Elden Ring is a masterpiece, my thoughts, after 60 hours. Yeah, you can sum up your thoughts in 16 minutes, 100%. Iron Pineapple, he's a goat. Same with the Atman, the goat. Why is Elden Ring so successful? 22 minutes. It's almost as if the best quality videos that review games are long ones.
Of its popularity. And man, do we have a few in the gaming industry. But what's surprising this time, many of the people who hate Elden Ring are developers at other studios, infuriated by Elden Ring's success.
Same developer.
Bro, I remember reading about that. Elden Ring's UX is so bad that only imagine FromSoft devs smoking at their desks and using CTR monitors. Someone salty their work for an open world sandbox generator that makes uninspired games. You be sad, huh? It literally is that. Like, someone's salty just because Elden Ring completely obliterated what they make. But it's like, if you're just gonna make the same uninspired drivel year in, year out, then yeah, it's no surprise that a game with a vision would overtake your shitty work.
Who said, Elden Ring's UX is so bad that I can only imagine FromSoft's devs smoking at their desks and using CRT monitors.
Bro.
I guess these developers felt that the game violated
Developers from Ubisoft and Guerrilla, as well as other people upset over Elden Ring's success. The fact that hashtag Elden Ring scored 97% proof of Metacritic is proof that reviewers don't give a flaming shit about game UX. Nor PC graphics, stability, and performance, apparently. I mean, yeah, no one cares about graphics. I mean, if people cared about graphics, then Minecraft wouldn't be, like, the best sold game of all time. PUBG wouldn't be loved as it is, you know? People don't give a crap about graphics. Graphics are good in a good game, and if graphics aren't good, it doesn't matter if the game is. But even then, Elden Ring has pretty good graphics. Like, I know that PC had a lot of frame rate issues at the time, but they've been patched now. And the console version didn't even have frame rate issues, really. I would know as I played it.
certain tenets of game development, and by violating these rules...
Oh my days. That's literally what it would look like if someone else made Elden Ring. Like, look, message of the day, people are aware, oh yeah, you can, microtransactions, activate Tarnished Sense, enemies on the map, an actual map, main quest, side quest. It's so bad, but it's so true.
of development, Elden Ring...
And it's a shame that that's the world we live in.
...deserve its success. Why would these devs be so angry about Elden Ring's success? Who cares if Elden Ring didn't follow the rules of game development?
At the end of the day, the only reason that they're mad is because Elden Ring is the first Souls game that does something similar to what they did. Like, before, they probably didn't care because it was like, oh, Sekiro and all the other Souls games, they were different, but they were their own thing. But now that Elden Ring is an open world and you've got things to compare it to, now they're getting mad.
Elden Ring's success affects them. Well, mostly. I can see why developers at Guerrilla Games were upset. Elden Ring released only 1 week after Horizon Forbidden West, so you could...
Bro, that was incredible. This game was so forgotten when Elden Ring came out. Not only was it an exclusive, but it was just inferior to Elden Ring in pretty much every way. And it's such a shame as well, because you can see that a lot of work went into Horizon Forbidden West, but Elden Ring just completely overshadowed it.
Say that Elden Ring overshadowed the hype around Horizon. So Horizon
exactly.
Possibly didn't perform as...
Horizon Forbidden West launch sales are down 35% compared to its predecessor. Damn.
as expected. The reason...
Although you've also got to keep in mind both of them were exclusives, so they weren't going to sell as well as Elden Ring, a game with very large hype around it, and it was multi-platform.
...is petty, and in no way Elden Ring's fault, but...
Hold on, let me just read that. Horizon Forbidden West sales fall by 80% in the UK, with Elden Ring as the biggest reason, or the possible reason. I mean, that and the fact that most people in the UK probably don't own PS5s, but, or PS4s, but...
Fault, but at least I can see where the Guerrilla devs' frustration comes from. But why were Ubisoft devs so upset? None of their sales were affected by the release of Elden Ring. Now,
Damn.
Remember, these were only a few people and not the whole studio who were angry at Elden Ring. However, the response from gamers to not only these devs, but Ubisoft as a whole showed...
Ubisoft, look at the dislike ratio, 76,000 people disliked it. Ubisoft is evolving, but backwards. I think that's so true. Like, take a look at any franchise Ubisoft makes, they're getting worse. Far Cry. The OG games were amazing, but everything after Far Cry 4 was awful. Like, Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, and, like, some of those games were pretty good, but then, like, they just started going backwards.
Notice something really interesting. Gamers are tired of playing the same thing. We are tired of the formulaic nature of Ubisoft in most other AAA games.
Sure, yeah. It has a satisfying shooter-looter game loop, the graphics are great, the mechanics are well-tuned and executed, and the story's acceptable.
Bummer?
Yeah! It's exactly the same as all other Ubisoft games. It's just another copy-paste.
You see,
it's literally that. Like, look at all this. Like, it's the same thing. Map, inventory skill, all the rest of it. It's literally like, once you play one, you've played them all. And no one wants that. Because I don't need to explain why people don't want that.
Every user interface, every store, and every game looks relatively the same. We notice. It's like Hotel.
I think it's incredible as well that Elden Ring was able to be as financially successful as it was without a single microtransaction being in the game, aside from DLC when it inevitably comes out. Think about that.
Art. Each piece of art is theoretically different, but somehow feels and functions exactly the same. So when the first few Assassin's Creed games came out, they felt new and exciting. Running around the Holy Land of Rome, leaping off buildings, sneaking or hiding in hay bales.
Yeah, exactly.
But now,
imagine that. Like, the first few Assassin's Creed games come out and it's like, oh, you can, like, jump off buildings into hay bales, you can sneak around, you can climb buildings. Like, that would have been revolutionary at the time. But now the franchise is just evolving backwards. It's the same thing every time, and that's not what people want. Because at the end of the day, if they want that sort of formula, they can just play the previous games. They don't need to buy the new one because the new one's not good. Or it's more of the same. But why would they want more of the same when they have to spend money to get it?
I can barely tell the difference between Assassin's Creed gameplay and every other Ubisoft game. Ubisoft thinks if they just change the era and location of each game, we won't notice. I mean, one has knives and one has guns, right? But just like hotel art, they may look different, they don't feel any different. It's the same game with a new coat of paint.
Yeah.
This reason is why Ubisoft devs reacted the way they did. They have been taught that to make a successful game, you need to follow a formula. So when a studio like FromSoftware makes Elden Ring without the formula, and it's incredibly successful, it infuriates developers who...
Well, I think that Elden Ring does have a formula. It's quite clear that they take what worked in previous Souls games, but they just improve it. That's the thing. They expand upon it. Like the Ash of Wars in other weapon arts in Dark Souls 3. They were an okay idea, but they weren't executed properly. So Elden Ring was like, right, let's take the Ash of War make it so that there's like 10 times the amount, and make it so that they're far more included in the gameplay. Like, Elden Ring just took what worked in previous games, got rid of what didn't work, and just built upon it. Whereas Ubisoft games, it's as he said, it's literally the same, but with a different coat of paint. And it's the same with Call of Duty, like Modern Warfare 2019, Cold War, Vanguard, etc. Those games are very, very similar. Like, they all support Warzone, they all play very similar, and no one wants it anymore, you know? People appreciate new stuff.
Had their creativity restricted and pushed into a box. Now, these devs who criticize FromSoft should take full responsibility for what they said in a public forum. However, I also blame AAA studios like Ubisoft for forcing their teams to create unimaginative copycats of their previous 10 games. We can get mad at a few devs all we want, but the real problem comes from the Ubisoft's executives choosing to be formulaic.
Yeah.
Why are the leaders of
I think that, honestly, I think what it is they're just too scared to experiment. Because they're like, oh, what if we put like years into this project and it's a flop? Well, you know not to do it again. It's really that simple. You know, there's been some really good franchises that have had flops. Like, you could even argue From Software Dark Souls 2. You know, even though Dark Souls 2 was successful, it's not as good as the others. Sonic the Hedgehog, you know, Sonic has had plenty of flops in its time when it tried to experiment. But, like, Sonic does experiment, it's just that some ways do and don't work. But the problem with the gaming industry now, like AAA stuff, is that I think they're just too scared to experiment. Because they're scared of failing. So instead of taking a risk to make a 10 out of 10 game, they instead pump out 5 out of 10 games every year.
AAA studios hellbent on producing the same type of game. Why force your devs to work on the 100th Assassin's Creed when they want to work on something new and exciting? The answer,
Exactly.
stability and money. This may be obvious to everyone, but milking an IP over and over again is the easiest way to make money as an entertainment company.
Like, look at Call of Duty. I think that it's quite interesting that Call of Duty's been doing it since literally the early 2000s. Yet I think it's only recently where people have been burnt out of it. Like, look at these examples. Like, going back, Call of Duty 3, granted, isn't a good example. Yeah, COD 4 introduced like the multiplayer, the creator class, all that good stuff. Fun, and we all liked it.
Over and over again.
Call of Duty World at War basically took the blueprints of Modern Warfare, added a World at War coat of paint, but they introduced the Zombies game mode, which was debatably more iconic than multiplayer and campaign. Some would have you believe.
Is the easiest way.
Modern Warfare 2 comes along. They got rid of zombies because, you know, Infinity Ward and stuff, you know, zombies was a Treyarch thing at that time. But they refined everything that made Modern Warfare 1 amazing. They just refined it and made it all better.
To make money as an entertainment.
Black Ops, you could argue it did exactly the same thing, but with World at War instead. They made it into, you know, a more recent time period. They made the zombies better. They made multiplayer smoother. They basically took what worked in previous games and improved or, you know, tweaked it. Whereas now,
we've had a new Call of Duty 19.
Whereas now it just feels as though they're changing the paint. It doesn't feel as though they're improving it.
22's top 20 best-selling games are all existing IP or sequels, except for Elden Ring. Seriously, look at this. Elden Ring is the only game on here that is...
I think it's really disappointing that Madden overtook God of War. Can I be honest? But, like, look at these. Horizon Forbidden West, MLB, Mario Kart 8. Like, again, I think it's incredible that Elden Ring was able to do what it did. Given the fact that it was... I know it's a Souls game, but, like, the fact that it had no IP that could, like... I don't know. I know what I'm trying to say. I just can't think of the words. Where, like, essentially, it's incredible. The point that he's making. It's incredible that Elden Ring did as well as it did without belonging to an IP.
A new IP. What's even more crazy about this list is that 2 of the top 20 games were Call of Duty games, and 3 of them were sports sequels, which are notorious for being the exact same as their predecessor. We can complain about these games being soulless copycats all we want, but we're the ones buying these soulless games in droves. And for companies to come...
I think that the sports games are the worst examples. Because at the very least, with like Call of Duty and stuff, there's new stuff to do. Like whether it's new guns to upgrade or unlock or whatever it is. But with these, it's literally just worse in some cases. You're paying for the same experience, but the graphics are worse or the performance is worse.
Brand new games and IP is risky, so studios will make sequels for as long as possible if we keep buying them.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't ever see studios not making sequels when we buy them year after year. That said, there is a negative effect on your brand when you don't release something new or innovative. Think about it. What is one of your favorite games? Remember when that game...
Yeah, like, I think Pokemon's another good example where, like, they improved the generations as it went on, but then you get to, like... I don't even know, you get to like X and Y or something, and it's just way too easy. And then it's like, what do you do from there? Do you make it harder? But I think at that point, it's just more difficult to make the game better.
Negative effect on your brand when you don't release something new or innovative. Think about it. What is one of your favorite games? Remember when that game was released and how you felt about the developer of that game. Pretty good, right? Then think about that specific developer's most recent games. How do those new games compare with your favorite game?
I think when I was younger, like, my childhood was like Sonic Generations, just Sonic in general. Like, I remember like that was one of the first Xbox games I played. Same with Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And yeah, in that regard, you know, obviously we've had COD Vanguard, stuff like that, disappointing releases. And, you know, for Sonic, you know, Sonic Frontiers has been pretty good, but we had like Team Sonic Racing, we had Sonic Forces, you know, the Sonic Colors Ultimate, which was a pretty lazy remaster or remake. So yeah, he is right in that regard. The games of our childhood just don't hold up compared to their modern day releases.
How do you feel about that developer now? Probably not great. For me, it was Blizzard and Warcraft 3. This game made Blizzard my favorite developer, and I wouldn't allow a bad word to be said about them. But now, Blizzard has released cash grab after cash grab, not to mention everything else they have done. And I
think Overwatch 2 was a big example. It was literally just the original game, but with more characters. And and the official Twitter account was like Overwatch 1, but a 2 this time. You know, almost as if they were foreshadowing the game's shady business model.
can't help but look at Blizzard with disappointment. A bad game happens sometimes, but Blizzard hasn't made a good game since 2016 with Overwatch. Not to mention they somehow butchered Warcraft 3 with the release of Reforged. I just can't imagine defending Blizzard anymore. The Blizzard brand has fallen from one of the greatest video game developers to a company that is compared to EA. But
damn, that's a pretty big insult, I gotta be honest, given the money-grabbing, history that EA has.
Saw with Blizzard in the beginning, the opposite occurs when you release something new that just blows people away, like Elden Ring. Gamers will have your back. Even if...
In defense of Elden Ring's boss design, perfectly imbalanced, perfectly balanced. Again... read Joseph Anderson. So, I think that... I think that, there are some people... again, Elden Ring is not perfect. And there are people who make videos and they're like, oh, Elden Ring's bosses are imbalanced or they're not designed correctly. And I agree with some of them. There's a few things I would tweak about the Elden Ring bosses. But at the same time, you're going to have people like Rusty and, dang it, TDM, where it's like, they like the game. And they're willing to spend, half hour, 15 minutes to defend it.
The game isn't perfect. I mean, look at one of the biggest controversies on YouTube, featuring the Act Man and Quantum TV.
This guy made a video saying, Elden Ring sucks or something, and he hates everyone that plays Elden Ring. So Act Man made a video about, the worst take in Elden Ring.
The drama from these Elden Ring videos escalated to way more controversial stuff.
Yeah, this drama had no right getting as big as it was. It should have just been, Quantum makes an Elden Ring review, the Act Man takes the piss out of it, and it should have left it at that. But no, it just led into, copyright strikes, DMCA takedowns, potential doxing, Quantum trying to get a hold of the Act Man's, family in real life, find, personal details, all that. It just really extreme stuff, and it shouldn't have... And it all started with, Act Man taking the piss out of Quantum TV's Elden Ring review. It's ridiculous that even happened.
Bigotry, copyright, demonetization, and the Act Man trending as...
It was YouTube support that recommended I copyright claim your video because you re-uploaded clips my original delete. Oh yeah, because this guy doesn't understand what fair use is. I really want this guy to never ever look at my YouTube channel. Because he just doesn't understand fair use. There's no point. Maybe I'll react to one of this guy's videos at some point. Just to see if he'll copyright strike me. Or try to. It's absurd. Also, literally no one... This is a lie, because YouTube support will not recommend you copyright claim a video. Because that would make that... YouTube does not give you legal advice, because that would make them legally liable for you if they gave you bad advice.
the #1 story on Twitter. But all this stemmed from arguments about Elden Ring. Why? Because FromSoft had gained some huge brownie points for releasing pure art. And like any extravagant...
Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter how good a game is, you will always have people who will say it's not that good, or it's overrated, or, you know, you might like it, but I hate it, kind of thing. And I think that that's all well and good, as long as your reasoning is good.
Piece of art, people will have visceral reactions, both positive and negative. Which is also why people get so angry when you change the story and lore of video games with TV shows like Halo or The Witcher. I mean,
Yeah.
Witcher 3 was a beloved game and a piece of art to so many people, not to mention the comics. So when you mess up the story and lore in the show, the community isn't...
I think the show of The Witcher is so terrible. But, like, not for the reasons you're thinking. Like, I remember Henry Cavill was so excited to play Geralt of Rivia, like the main character in like the Witcher series, because he was a big fan of the games. But I actually read this morning where it was like the actual showrunner, the lead showrunner, actually disliked and found it cringy that like Henry Cavill was as enthusiastic towards playing Geralt as he was. And she was like upset at him for wanting to stay faithful to the source material, which I think is, as a showrunner, is really bad. Which is why I have so much respect for the Walking Dead series that's coming out now, because there are some videos on YouTube that literally play the series back to back with the games, and the dialogue is almost identical, which I think helps make the show really good, and in a way kind of helps promote the game. Like, they kind of promote each other if they're good. But then you have the Halo and Witcher show where it's clearly behind the scenes stuff going on, and it makes the games worse in a sense, you know?
Toxic when they react negatively. They are passionately asking for you to respect that piece of art as they do. Now, all this said, I don't just want to bash on AAA studios and walk away. True constructive criticism should have ideas for improvement, not just ranting. So if I had the opportunity to consult a AAA studio, I would suggest the Pareto principle to be applied company-wide.
Pareto principle.
This principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, is the observation that roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes. One company effectively applying this technique is Google. During my time at Google, I saw how they allowed their employees to spend 20% of their time working on something the individual thought would most benefit the company. Both Gmail and AdSense came from this practice, and the former made Google more than $54 billion just in 2022.
Damn.
An applicable example is Fortnite. The original
To put it into perspective, I'm pretty sure $54 billion, I'm pretty sure earlier in the video he showed a thing of like Ubisoft earning like $2.37 billion. So, like, just from these guys experimenting in, like, their spare time, they made, like, 20 times the money that Ubisoft made. It's incredible.
Fortnite concept was developed from an internal game jam put on by Epic Games. Although they don't strictly follow the 80-20 rule, a game jam is just one example of its application. Letting your team take time to work on new and innovative ideas. Just pure creativity.
Like, I kind of feel like that's why the custom zombies community is as good as it is. Because people can just sit down, spend time on a project that they're passionate about and make it as good as they can be. Which is why I think a lot of custom Call of Duty Zombies maps are better than the ones that are made by Treyarch now. It's because it's not like an algorithm thing, you know, the community are just passionate about it, which is why they will do a really good job. Whereas, you know, the employees at, you know, Treyarch or Infinity Ward or whatever, they can't afford to be passionate because it could lose, you know, that's not what the higher up people want, so.
Creativity with no deadlines. And creativity is the key to a company's longevity. You need to
Yeah.
constantly innovate to stay alive. And it's what the AAA industry desperately needs right now. So how can we get more games like Elden Ring? AAA studios need
Those fucking lobsters, man. Amazing.
to allocate 20%.
Wait, you could
of all
ride
their
those things? I didn't know you could do that.
now. So how can we get more games like Elden Ring?
I didn't know you could ride
AAA
those
studios
things.
need to allocate 20% of all their resources to working on new and innovative games. No deadlines, no parameters, just pure creativity.
It's actually quite interesting if you apply the 80-20 rule to Elden Ring, because I think 80% of the game's content is like stuff that came before but has been improved, and the 20% is the new stuff that Elden Ring introduced. But, like, I think that that's all it takes. You know, like, the open world is the 20%. The bosses, lore, music, combat, gameplay, PvP, etc. is the 80%. It all came from previous games, but has just been refined and improved. And then if Elden Ring 2 comes out, they'll probably do the same. They'll take like 80% of the stuff that worked from Elden Ring, the first Elden Ring, and the 20% will be new stuff. Whether it's like new locations, new themes, etc., you know?
Developers work part-time on something they are passionate about and be amazed at what they'll create. I'm not saying stop making sequels. As we saw, AAA studios make a lot of money from sequels, and sequels aren't always a bad thing. I'm stoked for a Hollow Knight 2, and I pray for a Warcraft 4. However, for AAA studios to be profitable while garnering the love and support...
I think that's kind of what it is. Like, sequels are just too easy to make you money. Like, I think that's what it is. Like, Call of Duty... just the name Call of Duty is gonna make people buy it. It doesn't matter whether the game's good or not. So, like, if you release a new game and it's got Call of Duty in the title, people are gonna buy it, regardless of the quality. Which I think is a shame, but as he says, it earns them money, so...
gaming community, AAA studios should look at Elden Ring as an example to stop making formulaic games while applying Pareto's principle to let their developers conceptualize and build masterpieces we all will appreciate.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
Elden Ring. Hey, thanks to everyone who joined our Discord.
And I think Hogwarts Legacy is a good example. You know, even though you could argue it's similar to a lot of games, it clearly had a vision. You know, it was taking the Hogwarts, you know, the Harry Potter IP, but it was trying to be its own thing. And I think that for what it was, I think they succeeded. You know, forget all of the, you know, the drama behind the game, forget all the, you know, J.K. Rowling, transgender, you know, whatever, transphobic, you know, views, whatever, towards the transgender community. Forget all of that. I think that they had a vision towards making a Harry Potter-based game before the events of, like, the books and the films, and I think it worked. I think that that's really what it is. You know, you can't make the same thing year in, year out, because, again, it will either just be the same or it'll be worse than the original thing. Very rarely is it better. You need to take what worked in your games and improve it. Like, again, using those examples from my childhood, Black Ops 1 to Black Ops 2 was a no-nonsense improvement in my opinion. I preferred the Black Ops 2 campaign, the multiplayer was much better, and the zombies, whilst it had lower lows than Black Ops 1 zombies, it had much better highs and much more consistent quality in my opinion. You then have Sonic Colors to Sonic Generations, and I think Generations was a massive step up. You know, its story might not have been that good, but I think the gameplay was just so addicting, and even to this day, 12 years later, I still revisit Sonic Generations, you know, from my childhood. So I think it really just comes down to make something you're passionate about, and you will attract other people that are passionate about the same thing, and you'll grow like that. But you can't just make something for the sake of making it, because it's pretty obvious, you know, people looking at your project, that it's not original, and you didn't make it out of love. You made it because you felt you had to make it just to survive. But yeah, I really enjoyed that video. I think that he made some pretty good points. There wasn't really anything I disagreed with, and yeah, I think Elden Ring was a fantastic release last year. It defied trends, it improved what it could, and introduced what it could to stand out, even in its own franchise. So, yeah, I think that the games industry needs to move forward.